no, you can't simply say Israel is just one amongst many other foreign nations. We should just treat them like every other foreign nation. But the situation obviously says something different. We do have a very unique and different relationship with Israel because its people, the Jews, are all over the influence of our nation. And what we have had to do for the betterment of Israel is very different than what we have done for the betterment of any other nation in the world. Just do the math. It's an empirical reality that Jewish people have a disproportionate role amongst all of our civil institutions, and it is a commonly held priority amongst Jewish people, the nation of Israel and its well-being. Number two, how many other foreign nations have we gone and fought wars on behalf of? Because in the case of Israel, it's half a dozen or more, and it's been ongoing for, as I said, your entire life. The Jewish people have time and time again, in more than 100 countries on over 1,000 different occasions, amongst these European nations, had identity clashes with the various European nations. Okay, that's a unique attribute of the Jewish people. This is a unique situation of Jewish people, and it is due to their unique history of being an international people living in a diaspora. And furthermore, it is unique to the Jewish people because their religion is an ethno-religion, whereas Christianity is not, Islam is not. So we have full cause, it is morally unimpeachable to look at them as a separate case, a different foreign nation than all of the others.
The destruction of human freedom. But like every one of the superstates that preceded it, it has one iron rule. Logic is an enemy and truth is a menace.
And so one string of questions that I thought was honestly just pretty laughable was Tucker asserting that Israel comes after Nick less than they come after Tucker Carlson. And this is a guy who suddenly just became critical of Israel in the last 2 years. And he says the reason he believes this is because Nick is somewhat of a useful individual for them because he stokes the flame of, quote, anti-Semitism, which then allows people like Jonathan Greenblatt of the ADL to say, oh my gosh, anti-Semitism is higher than it's ever been. It's sky high. It's rocketing. We have to do something about this. We have to pass censorship laws. We have to all come together, not just Jews, but everybody has to come together for the protection of Jews. And anybody criticizing them is immoral, anti-Semitic. They're just as bad as Hitler. And so Tucker says, you know, the reason they're attacking me is because my conversation is more nuanced, because I keep individuals separate from groups. They're actually leaving you alone. This is how ignorant Tucker is on the subject. Tucker says, well, they're largely leaving you alone because you're an actual useful piece in this political landscape for them because you help build their shield and their paranoia of anti-Semitism and how dangerous it is. They can point to somebody like you and say, see, real Nazis exist. And obviously, he mentioned before, that was the reason why he thought Nick is potentially a Fed, is because this criticism of Israel as a nation, Jews as a culture or people, this collective rhetoric is something that undermines the conservative movement. And so that's why he had to keep Nick out of the mainstream conversation and perhaps even why Nick is a Fed. Well, Nick refutes this allegation by saying that Israel and collective Jewish interests have been trying to destroy him for the last 10 years. By the way, ADL canceled his YouTube. The Southern Poverty Law Center literally posted his home address and pictures of his home, doxing him, putting him in personal danger, which resulted in, obviously, the assassination attempt last year. Not like hypothetical danger, but actual assassination attempts. You had Daily Wire, as mentioned earlier, going after him when he was still an 18-year-old and smothering him in the cradle, making sure he couldn't have political success. So, I mean, these things for Nick have been happening his entire adult life. It's not in the last 2 years they suddenly started coming after him. He's met this constant drip of Jewish individuals, Jewish groups coming after him his entire political career. So I thought that was just kind of ignorant, honestly, of Tucker to even put forth such a laughable idea that somehow the Jews or Israel care far more about attacking Tucker currently than they do Nick, or I should say historically, than they do Tucker Carlson. It might be true that they're coming after Tucker right now because thanks to his recent conversion or willingness to talk about these subjects and the fact that Tucker has a much larger audience, maybe right now Israel is saying Tucker is a bigger problem than Nick. But historically, they have been trying to ruin Nick's life for a decade. So Tucker then again says that anyone complaining about, quote, the Jews is anti-Christian and collective punishment is wrong. So again, we see Tucker slide back into boomerism of going back to, well, it's anti-Christian to say things about, quote, the Jews. But then he does give Nick some space and he says, well, to be fair, you're one of those people like me who are often judged purely through clips, people who have seen 30-second, 60-second intervals of your long format discussions, and that's really all they know about you. Maybe they've seen half a dozen of them or who knows how many, but they've only seen the most sensational, the most confrontational segments of what you have to say. And so to be fair to you, why don't you say in your own words what you personally stand for, what you want for this country? Which is a great thing to hear. I didn't like the preamble being, well, you really got to stop talking about the Jews, and it's actually anti-Christian to use that language of talking about, quote, the Jews. I hate seeing that recidivism. I hate seeing Tucker fall back into that boomer worldview of like, I just can't break out of talking about groups being a bad thing. But I was very appreciative for him saying, listen, clips are a different thing than the man. I know this personally. People have clipped me and misrepresented my beliefs. Obviously, I learned that this would happen thanks to watching Nick's content long before that. And even back before I knew about Nick, I saw this happen with Tucker Carlson, where black people would take something he said about black crime and say, see, Tucker Carlson is racist and hates black people. So Nick then breaks down when he was questioned about, tell me just in your own words, what is it that you stand for? Nick breaks down why we can't simply treat Israel like any other foreign nation, because that is the position that Tucker has assumed as of the last 2 years. And it's the same thing that Matt Gaetz and Joe Kent and Marjorie Taylor Greene and even Dave Smith and other people who are now criticizing Israel, they say, look, it's as simple as this. Israel is a foreign nation. Every foreign nation is subject to criticism, especially ones who have very high levels of access and representation in our government or other civil institutions. And so, okay, there you go. It's fair to criticize them. They're a foreign nation, just like any other foreign nation. That's the little add-on they want to add on there and say, like the analogy I used earlier, hey, if it were China or Russia or whoever else, it's a foreign nation. We should treat all foreign nations the same. That's a rhetorical device that sounds good. And in theory, yes, that is true. Any foreign nation should be subject to criticism. But here is the special cause for talking about Israel as a unique nation amongst all the other nations. Obviously, the most significant one is that there are no other nations who hold such influence over American politics, our economy, our media, and education. That's just true. If you look at Jewish representation among the leadership roles in government, in Hollywood, in the finance industry, or in the education system, in particular the Ivy League schools, you're not seeing disproportionate representation of Asians or Central and South Americans or Arabs or Africans. It's Jews. So that's number one. You just do the math. It's an empirical reality that Jewish people have a disproportionate role amongst all of our civil institutions, and it is a commonly held priority amongst Jewish people, the nation of Israel and its well-being. Okay, so that's why Israel represents one special cause for us to stop and examine them a bit differently than just every other foreign nation. Number two, how many other foreign nations have we gone and fought wars on behalf of over your lifetime? How many wars have we went and fought on Ukraine's interest? One. How many wars have we went and fought for, Taiwan's interest? Well, we're setting up a war right now with China. Okay, how many other wars have we been drug into for the betterment of a different nation other than Israel throughout your lifetime? Because in the case of Israel, it's half a dozen or more, and it's been ongoing for, as I said, your entire life. And it has used our military and our economy, our dead soldiers, our population. It has leveraged our reputation. It's leveraged our intelligence to do all of these things, our tax dollars. So that is a unique characteristic of Israel, That's not a unique characteristic that applies to Russia or Ukraine or Taiwan or any of our other allies. We haven't done these things for Britain, France, Germany. We have done these things for Israel. And so, no, you can't simply say Israel is just one amongst many other foreign nations. We should just treat them like every other foreign nation. But the situation obviously says something different. We do have a very unique and different relationship with Israel because its people, the Jews, are all over the influence of our nation. And what we have had to do for the betterment of Israel is very different than what we have done for the betterment of any other nation in the world. So we have full cause. It is morally unimpeachable to look at them as a separate case, a different foreign nation than all of the others.
Meeting the people that you actually want to meet this day and age is basically impossible. Well, I have a solution to these problems. You're wearing your anti-Zog merchandise, that cutie from across the gym. She knows what the Zog is. She knows that Save Europa is code for white genocide. Or if it's somebody of the same gender, boom, you just got yourself a new best friend. This is your opportunity. Everybody's always complaining about how hard it is to find people who know what's really going on. Well, this is it. This is how you broadcast those beliefs to the world.
Furthermore, and that's just from the purely American self-interested point of view, but the Jewish people, their nation, there is also more detail and nuance to that. Obviously, they are a skeptical of European civilization people, and they have historic cause to do so, right? I mean, I am a logical person. I can understand the rationale of historic grievances, and I would like you to be able to do the same. You know, let's call a spade a spade. The Jewish people obviously had grievances with Rome, the destruction of the temple, being cast out into the diaspora. Then you have the Pale of Settlement in Russia. Then you have, obviously, the Spanish Inquisition. You have, obviously, what happened in Germany. You have the disputations of Paris. You have the disputations of Barcelona. Okay? Throughout the centuries, throughout the millennia, the Jewish people have time and time again, in more than 100 countries on over 1,000 different occasions, amongst these European nations, had identity clashes with the various European nations. Okay, that's a unique attribute of the Jewish people. We didn't run into this problem with the Africans, nor the Arabs, nor the Hispanics, nor the Asians. This is a unique situation of Jewish people, and it is due to their unique history of being an international people living in a diaspora. And furthermore, it is unique to the Jewish people because their religion is an ethno-religion, whereas Christianity is not, Islam is not. You can become, coming from any ethnicity, you can become a Muslim and you can become a Christian. The Jewish religion is passed down from the matrilineal line, and it is tied to the sacred inheritances of their bloodline. And so that creates some uncompromising situations in the practical, real world of trying to live peacefully amongst other people. So they end up developing one of two primary worldviews, especially in the 19th century and moving forward when Zionism comes about. Jews today typically fall into two categories, and Nick has articulated this very well on his show. In order for Jews to feel safe, they tend to adopt one of these two worldviews. One of them is standing behind the advocacy for open societies, because they say of the historical persecution of the Jews going all the way back to Egypt, through the Holocaust, through the Pale of Settlement, through the disputations, through the Inquisition, blah, blah, blah. The only way for Jewish people to feel safe living in whatever nation is if that nation is willing to adopt tolerance for minorities, tolerance for their religion, in particular, all religions. And it really doesn't make sense to say, okay, the Jews can practice their religion and the Jews as a ethnic group can be here, but nobody else can. That's not typically how it works. How it works is they say, in order for us to elevate ourselves in society as our own ethnic group and while retaining our religion, the only way that that's realistically possible is to advocate for all minorities and tolerance for all religions. And so that is called an open society, and built within that is open borders. And so that is kind of considered the liberal Jew that says, in order for me as a minority to be safe in this nation, we have to make that nation safe for all minorities, ethnic or religious. Okay, that's one approach to solving the quote Jewish problem that Jewish people have as a ethno-religious group of historical persecutions, exile, and so on and so forth. They say, whatever nation we set ourselves up in, we have to make sure that they are down for the minority cause. They can't have this staunch devotion to their blood and soil. They can't be a Christian monarchy that insists that no leadership in this country can be anyone other than Christians. They have to tear those things down. The ethnic identity and the religious identity of the country has to become tolerant. That's one method of resolving the Jewish problem that many Jewish people stand behind. The other one is Zionism, as it emerged in the 19th century, which says that maybe actually we can compromise on this whole idea of nationalism. You know what? If you're European Christian people and you want a European Christian nation, that's fine. But in order for that to be morally acceptable, you have to also say it's acceptable for us to have a Jewish nation in religion and ethnicity. We have to be able to have an ethno-state. We have to have religion codified in our culture. If that's what you want for your people, then you have to be okay with us doing that for our people. And this is where you see Zionism embedded with the conservative side of American politics. You see the open borders, open society Jews embedded with the left-leaning ideology in the Democrat Party. And you see the nationalist Zionist side of Judaism or the Jewish culture, Jewish people internationally, embed themselves with the conservative side of politics, the Republicans. And they say this is why Zionism is inextricably tied. Donald Trump receiving hundreds of millions of dollars from Sheldon Adelson and other billionaire Jewish individuals, Jews dominating Silicon Valley, and then getting behind Donald Trump and the Republican Party, the backing of J.D. Vance. They say, okay, if we're going to suddenly beat our chest about American identity and say, yeah, close those damn borders, no more non-whites. And you know what? This is a Christian nation. Okay, cool. We'll let you say those things. We'll give you billions of dollars to get elected to say those things. But you got to be down for making sure Israel is protected, not only protected, that it has the ability to expand and expand as explicitly as a state for the Jewish people, its religion and its people. That's the marriage of Zionism and conservative politics, and that is the alternate universe marriage of open society Jews and their liberalism marriage to the left side, the Democrat Party. And so these are unique attributes about the Jewish people. It is their worldview, it is their culture, it's their religion, it's their nation, it's their history. So no, we can't just look at them as just like every other nation or just like every other group. There are unique attributes about them. They can be talked through and we can figure out ways to coexist. But these conversations have to be had with openness, transparency, honesty, discernment. It's not immoral to talk about any of these things. Nobody needs to be censored. Nobody is calling for violence in regards to settling these questions. So that's me giving my soliloquy about how we can resolve this and the unique nature of Jewish people, Israel, and it being a foreign nation, unlike all the other foreign nations, their religion, unlike other religions. Well, Tucker then puts Nick on the spot and says, okay, if you became president tomorrow, how would you like this issue of contradictory identities to be resolved here in America? And so Nick's response to this is pretty succinct. He says, the U.S. government must not be influenced by foreign influence, and that includes American citizens operating within the American borders, advocating on behalf of foreign nations. And obviously this is a reference to AIPAC or any other foreign lobbying. That's a pretty straightforward answer. If you care about any other nation, whether or not you're an American citizen or not, if you're going to use your wealth, your status, your influence, whatever it may be, to improve the circumstances in a foreign nation, especially when it is to the detriment of America and Americans, that is intolerable. Whether you're a politician, a celebrity, a socialite, whatever, if that is your position, that you're going to do things for some other nation, you're going to request money, you're going to request military, you're going to request intelligence, you're going to request diplomatic support. If you're going to use your wealth, fame, influence, status, position, whatever it may be, to do that for a foreign nation, sorry, we're not okay with that. And that isn't something that has to be thoroughly talked about and strategized about, man, well, how could we actually implement that? It's a guiding ethos. And sure, there should be some legal footing for that as well, registering with FARA, making sure you hold foreign saboteurs accountable, that kind of thing. But we don't have to sit here and scratch our heads about, well, man, now we're this melting pot. How do we ever undo a lot of this? This is actually guidable from the top of the ship. How do people form their worldviews and their priorities? They learn them through education. They are given certain opinions through the media, and the government implements its own priorities at a legal level. And so you use these three civil institutions to guide society back into the correct understanding and conformity. Guide them away from open borders, open societies, guide them towards America first, guide them towards Christianity, guide them towards the patriarchy, guide them toward the acknowledgement of America's ethnic identity. And it doesn't have to come down with legal force. Nobody has to be persecuted, fired, harmed physically. In the same way that nobody has codified mandation of homosexuality. Nobody has codified and mandated atheism. But we've seen increases in all of those things. We've seen increases in foreign influence, right? That's because of the promotion of gender ideology. That's the promotion of foreign nations. That's the promotion of critical race theory and critical theory in general. Whatever you promote through the media, through education, through the government, that's what becomes the norm. Okay? And so we don't have to go and, as I said, legalize these priorities. We don't have to employ force to do these things. You simply change what's being promoted. A good example that's coming up here in the question and answer session is the situation with pornography.
The few brave men who have actually tried to go out and do something about white genocide or talk about Jewish influence, the Zionist-occupied government, we all know that they get crucified, their careers get destroyed, and so we need to find ways to support each other. One of the ways that I have done that is by creating my Substack, where there are exclusive early access to documentaries, my weekly vlogs, there are ebooks there. There's even an opportunity to set up a one-on-one 30-minute Ask Me Anything if you'd like. All of the proceeds from my Substack, from my YouTube channel, from the merch gets reinvested in the platform. I use that to pay my employees. I use that to buy the equipment that I need, the cameras, the lights, the MacBook, all the books, all of the software, pay for marketing, everything else, but also it protects my literal life. So if you want to help out, please do head on to Substack, get yourself a subscription. Thank you. I appreciate it. America first and Christ is King.